Hey, William Gilmore here for the ScreenwritersJourney.com. It's day 57 of the journey and sort of hit a stumbling block, a little setback, roadblock with the screenplay come-ups. Yesterday I was obviously very excited, having completed the polish and format draft of the latest version of the screenplay, and was feeling pretty confident about it. I'd had some questions about Shep not being strong enough as the hero, the leading character, the protagonist. He was a little overshadowed by Grady in the first act and into the second act. So I've been doing some work trying to bolster him to make him more of the proactive hero that I want him to be. I think by the midpoint, he is obviously the leading character, the one who takes charge of the situation and is handling things. But I had some concerns that he wasn't quite active enough in that first part. He was more of a victim of circumstance rather than attacking those circumstances. And but I thought I had bolstered him up enough that I could sneak by with that. And that's always a problem if you ever think that you are getting by with something, you're not going to. And that's what happened here. I sent the script out to a couple of friends to look at. And on my way to Tuesdays at 9 writing workshop last night, I got a call from one of those people that I sent the script to. And she's someone who has read my work in the past, has been very supportive of it, seems to like it a lot. And this time around, she had some questions. First of all, it's not the type of story that she likes. It's an actioner, shoot 'em up, gangland kind of story. As she said, it's a boy story. Something that the boys really want to go see and see people getting into gun battles and whatnot. Not her type of thing. But the big problem she had with it was that she wasn't sure who she was supposed to be rooting for, and that ultimately led to her having feelings of the characters weren't likable enough for her because she didn't know enough about them. And there was this sort of question about, well, is it Shep or is it Grady, which is exactly the problem I thought I had and had sort of worked around. It's very obvious, by the time we get into the second half of the screenplay after the midpoint, that it's Shep's story, but there was confusion. And that confused her at that point because she thought it was Grady's story leading up to that point, and all of a sudden Shep steps up and takes over. And then it comes down to the fact that Shep is not real active in those early scenes. It's Grady with his military training that sort of steps up at the gun battle, at the drug buy, and then of course Shep gets shot, and that's the big issue. Shep gets shot, and he's basically taken out of the story while he's recuperating, and this happens at the end of the first act when our hero should be making the decision that he's going to step up and tackle whatever dilemma has been presented to him. And he's in recuperation through the early part of the second act, and he really doesn't become a strong force until just before the midpoint. And for our hero, that's not a good thing. And I thought I had bolstered him enough that I could slide through that and basically squeak by. And if you ever find yourself thinking, I can get by with this, it's probably not a good sign, and you need to readdress that. But when you've done so much work and you can see the end right there, you sort of convince yourself that, yeah, this will work. And that's sort of what I guess I did. Now, I've said before that you can't take one person's opinion. You need to hear at least 3 people, and if they all start saying the same thing, then you've probably got an issue. But if only one person says it, nobody else picks up on that point, you're probably okay because everybody's going to see things a little bit different. But if they're all hitting on the same point, that's an issue. So I was a little concerned going into the reading, and so I was thinking about it, turning it over my head, and what can I do? Particularly since tonight's reading focused on the events of Shep getting shot and his sort of stepping out of the story here. We had the surgery in the garage, so Shep's only got 2 or 3 lines in this whole section we were reading. And it really became apparent that in just hearing the reading that Grady was sort of our hero. Unintentionally, but that's how it was coming across. So I had that just in listening to it. Afterwards, one of the writers came up to me, Matt Hoverman, wonderful writer, complimenting me on the writing, saying that he really likes the stuff that I do, and feels there's some really good work going on, some good character stuff. It's plotted really well, but he had a question. I was like, okay, what is that question? And he said, who's your lead character? Who is the hero? I was like, funny you should mention that, because I just had this whole conversation on the phone leading up to this reading, and then as I'm watching the reading, I'm going, this is a problem, because Shep's non-existent for this whole entire section that we read tonight, and he's going to be non-existent for the next section until just before the midpoint. And so I said, yeah, I said, Shep is supposed to be the hero. He was like, I wondered. He goes, in the events leading up to this, I was kind of torn. Is it Grady or is it Shep? I have a feeling that you're trying to make Shep the hero, but Grady is sort of overshadowing him a little bit. And then when we hit this scene tonight, Grady obviously became the hero. He goes, and that's fine. If Grady is the hero, then you're all good. He goes, but if you were trying to make Shep the hero, it's a problem. And he goes, the earlier scenes are a problem if Grady is the hero, because it felt like the focus was trying to go to Shep. So there's obviously an issue there in that first act going into the second act. Excuse me. That was 2 comments that all hit the same issue, plus my own concerns in watching the piece. And then when I got home, my roommate, who was also reading the script, she hadn't gotten quite as far along through the script. She's just into the start of the second act. So when I was discussing it with her and seeing what she thought, and she likes boy movies. She likes the action shoot 'em ups. The more gunplay, the better for her. And she really liked Grady, and for her, Grady was the hero. He was the guy who was stepping up, and she really, really liked him. I was like, oh, no, he's not the hero. It's Shep. So there you have it. I got 3 different comments all hitting the same point. They all felt that Grady was the hero. 2 of the people thought that I was trying to make Shep the hero, but it wasn't quite working. Grady was overshadowing. So there's definitely an issue there. So it is back to the drawing board and trying to rework. I think once I get to the midpoint, the story stays pretty much the same, because Shep is obviously the driving force at that point. It's just making him more active, making him clearly designated as the hero in the first act. So some more work to do, another draft coming. It'll be some pretty substantial rewrites for the first act and into the second act. So not quite as exuberant tonight as I was last night. But what are you going to do? That is what writing is all about, figuring it out. And it was something that I kind of knew, kind of anticipated, but again, thought I had squeaked by, thought I had smoothed it over just enough. And like I say, if you're ever thinking that, you know you're wrong. You can never just skate by. It's got to be very, very obvious. So back to the drawing board and reworking of come-ups. Bit of a dilemma here because I got NaNoWriMo coming up for November, working on the novelization of the screenplay Night Falls. But if I want to get come-ups out to start getting some coverage notes on the script and the story structure and have it ready for beginning of the year to start marketing it, I've got to find the time to rework that. And I've only got a couple days left of this month before I start NaNoWriMo. I'm not sure I'm going to make it in the last couple of days here of October, so NaNoWriMo is probably going to have to get pushed off a little bit. I can still work on that over the month, but the priority I think is going to have to be come-ups. So that's what we're looking at. Anyway, so take a look at your own work. Do you have anything in your screenplay that you think you're skating by with, you can sneak it past the audience. If you think you can sneak something past them, you may want to re-examine that. Also, we got the end of the month coming up, so you got to look at your goals. Did you make your goals? Did you exceed them? Did you not even come close? Because you got to start making some goals for November. So, a couple things for you to look at. Look at your own work. Are you skating by on something? 2, how are you doing on your goals for the month? I will see you back here on the blog tomorrow. Until then, keep writing, because that's all we got to do.